Hi guys, and welcome to Safe Diving. So you've probably already watched my video on the pros and cons of twin cylinders here. So you're probably already sold on doubling up your tanks, but there is another way to dive with two tanks that was invented in cave exploration, and that is side mount. Side mount is where you basically clip your tanks to either side of you with bolt snaps, as the side mount name kind of suggests, but hey, if you're thinking about it, let's take a look at the pros and the cons of side mount diving. So first of all, side mounting was created by cave explorers who needed a way to dive through the water-filled sections of caves. Single tanks didn't have the capacity to get them very far into the cave, and back-mounted twins were just too big and bulky and rigid to squeeze through the odd little gaps in the cave system. So by clipping the top of your tank to your shoulder D-rings and the base of your tank to your hip D-ring, you can actually unclip and move them around inside the water to fit through gaps. Side mount gives you great flexibility in and out of the water. You're no longer limited to a rigid back mount system from the beginning to the end of the dive. You can literally take one tank off, or both of them, to squeeze through a tiny gap, or literally donate an entire tank to a buddy if they actually need it. So if you don't want to carry all of your tanks for the entire dive, if you're diving with more than two for example, then you can actually clip some off at a point and then return back to them. If you're done with an entire tank and you have a team on the surface, then you can literally attach a lift bag onto it and then send that tank up for them to collect. Side mounting is very, very flexible with your tank management, which is why there was a massive explosion of popularity a few years back, and that's actually when I did my side mount training. The downside for this kind of flexibility is that you're doing a lot of clipping at times, and for cold water diving, that can be quite tricky. Thick gloves make side mount quite hard, so it's best left for warmer waters, or at least dry gloves where you have better dexterity, and make sure that you can actually find your D-rings on your harness whilst you're blindfolded. With all of your bulky dry suit and your undersuit and the cold water gear, side mounting feels kind of cumbersome, so I try to avoid it when I'm diving at home. If you're good with your bolt snapping, then side mount is a very civilized way of diving, because you never actually need to carry your cylinders around out of the water. Because they're not attached to you permanently, you can clip them off onto a rope off the side of the boat and literally lower your tanks down into the water. You then put on your gear, make your way into the water very easily, and then just clip your tanks off when you're ready to go. So the same goes for getting out of the water as well. You don't need to lug those tanks out of the water anymore. Just clip them off onto a line. So if you suffer from back problems, then side mount is a great way to dive without having to carry the weight of your tanks on your shoulders. When you're actually in the water and all set up, the position of the tanks does give you good ballast and profile in the water. Because your tanks sit just underneath your arms along your body, you're really nice and streamlined, and you tend to sit flat in the water. Having your tank valves right here means that shutdown drills and identifying issues is much easier too. Back-mounted tanks have a lot of stuff behind you, and if you have poor rotation in your shoulders, it can be tricky to reach your valves. But side mounting, if you're finding it tricky to do anything, just unclip it and bring it round in front of you and sort the problem out. It's much, much easier. Hose management is a new skill that you need to learn when you're side mounting tanks, because you now have hoses from each side, each tank, that can cross over your body at points, and it's important that you know which tank which hose is routing from, so that you don't switch to the wrong cylinder. But in this lies another skill and a benefit and such, in that you can dive with different gas mixes on each side for accelerated decompression, and you can keep adding more and more tanks to it. On twin cylinders, once they're dry, that's kind of it. You have little choice but to just end the dive, But with side mounts, you can just ditch the empties, making sure that your hoses are tucked away nice and neatly, and you're good to strap another one on. But the main downside to side mount is that you need a very specific BCD. Something like the X-Deep Stealth or the Apex WSX, you need a dedicated side mount style BCD, and that's kind of all that BCD will do. At least with twin sets, I can side mount a stage cylinder so that I'm diving with twins plus a tank, or even more, but you can't back mount twins or any kind of cylinders on a side mount rig. The best thing that you can do is kind of layer them up kind of either side so you have more tanks, or kind of use a butt D-ring just for your empties. So side mount definitely has its benefits, and if you're planning to switch it up to more technical diving, then I would definitely recommend you take a side mount course so that you can learn how to rig and mark up a stage cylinder properly, as well as proper hose routing. But if you're not clambering in and out of wrecks or caves, then I'd probably stick to my standard twin set or maybe even a rebreather. But what do I know? Let me know in the comments below if and how you use side mount. Don't forget to stay tuned for my next pros and cons video, which is going to be on rebreathers. Rebreathers are basically when things get much better, but there's also a lot to consider, so stay tuned for that. But for now, let's discuss side mount diving in the comments below. Okay, so thank you very much for watching this video. On my channel, I upload videos on Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays, all about how to be a better scuba diver. Now, I've been working in and around the diving industry for quite a long time now, and I have a lot of advice that I can help you out with. So if you need any help or advice with your diving, just let me know in the comments below and subscribe to my channel, and I'll probably make a video about it to help you out. So, if you want to, you can click here to check out one of my latest videos on how to upgrade your equipment and your diving as well, and then click here to check one of my scuba diving advice videos. Thank you for watching, and of course, safe diving.